what we're trying to think about that other people aren't is how do we get people to engage that content? And it's a very difficult thing to go to a room full of donors who are they're used to having people like us come to them and say, we need to make this, we need to write this, we need to march on this. And we're coming with a unique pitch. Our pitch is, we need money not so that we can make something new, but so that people can see the things that we make. So that the things that we make don't just make the people in this room feel better, knowing that we're doing something. They don't just make us feel better. Because listen, it makes me feel better waking up every day and knowing I'm in the fight. But that's not enough. We have to now take this wonderful content and expand it to an audience where we can actually change the narrative in the country, where we can actually shape the way people think and the way they vote on these issues, and that's where we.
And you know, the thing is, and this is a point that Andrew Breitbart made continually, is the reason it's tougher for us to make this sale than it sometimes is for other people. Is every election cycle somebody comes to you and says, "Oh man, you have got to give this amount of money to get this candidate elected, or the sky will fall." I mean, there's only 2 months to the election. You have got to contribute. I mean, Karl Rove is going to come out and say you've got to, put those attack videos on the air. Meanwhile, the culture is eating the ground out from under your feet. It's eroding the very ground that you're standing on. And those of you who remember what America used to be like, look at the White House and say, how did Barack Obama, a guy like Barack Obama, get in the White House? It's because they saw him at the movies. It's because while we were dealing with the next emergency and the next emergency and this election and that election, they were eating the ground out from under our feet by taking control of the culture. And that's what we're trying to do, is take the culture back. And that's why it's sometimes a more difficult pitch, because it's a long burn. It's a long job that we have to do. And the only words that I always want to tell conservatives are the words from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy: don't panic. Do not panic, because we have a long job ahead of us, and it starts now. And we're trying to do it now.
I'll tell you one thing that's really beautiful about this idea of an immortal Facebook presence that has a large number of eyeballs that can be directed to anything. Once that Facebook presence is established, it's simply a question of what do we put up on the Facebook page, and then we start getting huge numbers, hundreds of thousands of hits, and in some cases millions of hits. So I hope everybody's, I know you're all seated, but you might want to strap on your seatbelts, because here's a really revolutionary idea. If we were to have this Facebook presence where we could start really sending large number of eyeballs in certain places, then it'd be time for us to use the most powerful weapon of all. And this is why I'm glad everybody's sitting down, because I don't think anybody's ever said these words before to a conservative audience. But the fact of the matter is this: we can make conservatism interesting and passionate. We can make conservatism funny. But if you can make conservatism sexy, it's game over. Now, when I look to my right and to my left here and think about making conservatism sexy,
how much sexier could it get?
We're boned.
Oh, my.
We're boned. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you one thing. When they use sexiness to sell everything from automobiles to toasters to insurance policies to whatever, enough of that nonsense. It is not just using the sales tool. What it is it's destroying the narrative of who we are. It destroys the image of who we are. We lose elections because we're perceived to be these bloodless reptiles who live in our heads and are mean-spirited, horrible people. Which is why I said we're in such deep trouble. But the fact of the matter is this: I had a conversation. I was talking with somebody about politics. I was talking about people. I was talking about what was happening to black communities. I was talking about what was happening to America. And this person said to me, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but you sound like a liberal. And I said, really? She said, yeah, I sound like a liberal because you sound like you really care. Well, I do care. I do care. And so the idea that we are these straight-laced, uptight, rigid, bloodless, sexless robots with steel-rimmed spectacles and bow ties and suspenders, not only would making conservatism sexy use the power of sex appeal to sell anything as if you would sell any other thing, it would destroy their image of us. And so this is kind of where I think I'd like to see us going in the midterm. Is not people say, well, we should do a Daily Show. You should do an answer to the Daily Show. I don't want to do the Daily Show. I want to do something that outflanks the Daily Show. I want something that makes the Daily Show look like what it is, which is a 20-year-old tired, stale, cynical, bitter, mean-spirited, elitist talk down snark fest. I want to do something that gets behind that and says, we don't have to be nasty, and we don't have to be mean, and we don't have to have all this cynical nonsense. We're the princes of creation. The world is ours. We're the top of the food chain. We're free people living in the 21st century. We have Novocaine for oral surgery. We have fast cars and loud guns and hot women, and we're swinging dudes, and we dress well because it's cool to dress well, because we're not jeans and t-shirt savages. We're the Rat Pack, man. We're Sinatra. We got some swing. We got a little bit of hustle going here. And the thing that's so remarkable about the situation we find ourselves in is, as I said last night, this is in fact our philosophy, right? We are the people who think that men should be steely-eyed missile men, and women should be like short skirt, long jacket, smart kind of, saucy business managers. Yeah, I'm starting to get overheated. And we believe in things like burning rubber in the open road, and we believe in convertibles and the Beach Boys and candy apple red stingrays on an open day in the middle of Texas and no one telling us where to go. And we think we should be armed to defend ourselves and our women and our children. And we think that life is ours, and we have 6 flags on the moon, for God's sakes. And what are we doing dicking around here raising money for the Guatemalan water snake when there's deserts to irrigate and there's thorium reactors to build, and we can have as much energy as we want. And we can, if you want to have 5 houses, then go out and work harder and have 5 houses and live like a human being, for God's sake. How hard is this to sell to people? Honestly, how hard is it? They're trying to sell you on the idea that some once elected student council weenie in Sacramento has the right to tell you how warm or how cold your house is going to be based on the fact that we don't have the electrical grid because we don't spend the money to build more power plants because that money has to go to their retirement funds? Call them what they are. They're a bunch of tie-dyed weenie dweeb losers who can't open a jackknife, and we're gonna give up this life of freedom and prosperity and joy to these bloodless, loveless, sexless robots? No, I'm done with it. I'm tired of losing to these people. Done. Done.
Why are you pointing at that?
My only, Bill, that was a great speech. What are Beach Boys?
I genuinely believe, I've said this before, I do a little web show called The Stratosphere Lounge, and I said it on The Stratosphere Lounge, and when I said it, I actually started to cry. I actually believe the national anthem of the United States should be fun, fun, fun. I'm not kidding. I'm serious as I can be. I'm as serious as I can be. I think that song is America in a nutshell, certainly conservative America in a nutshell. You got our daddy's car, you're going to cruise to the hamburger stand now, you're in a T-Bird, you're free, you're alive, there's no one telling you what to do, that's your car, you paid for it, and when you're and by the way, we're talking about reaching young people, right? I mean, this is the goal. I don't want to reach these 24, 25, 26-year-olds that voted for this socialist loser. I want their younger brothers and sisters that think their older brothers and sisters are a bunch of idiots. I want to reach the kids who are wondering why their older brothers and sisters are still living in the basement. And I want to go to them and say, hey man, we're in favor of cars, and we don't have to tell you that when you're a teenager, your car is your kingdom. It's a little steel and glass empire of your own that you can go out and park someplace and listen to your tunes and have a good time. And no one can tell you what to do when you're in your car. Cars are freedom. Everybody loves cars. They belong to us. Guns belong to us. Hot people, good-looking people, not even good-looking people, just the idea that you can go out and do what you damn well want to. That's our philosophy. It's not their philosophy. And they are sexy? Come on, please.
And for $3,000 a week, we can expose 500,000 people to this sort of
I wouldn't be saying this. I'd be standing in the backgrounds, and I'd have these 2 smoking hot dancers doing the whole thing, and I would just be standing there with a wry expression, holding up cue cards for them to say it. I cannot recommend highly enough this Virgin America safety video, only because it takes the most arcane information, the most boring, mindless information, and makes you just not be able to stop watching it. And after I showed Jeremy the Virgin safety video, he sent me a link to something. He said, this is my favorite thing on the internet. And it was a video which is now another $10-12 million video. It's called Actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf. It's a song. It's a song about Shia LaBeouf being an actual cannibal who murders people, and it's done on a stage, and it uses the LA Gay Men's Choir, and it's got a production. There's 30 or 40 people on stage. There's dancers. There's people that come down on ropes. It's mind-boggling. I've seen it personally 15, 16 times, and it's about nothing. It's about nothing. But it is so compelling, and it's musical, and it's interesting, and it's cool, and it's wry, and it's hip. And if you were to put just a couple of these core principles into that kind of production number, you would give 15, 16, 17-year-old people a place to land culturally. It would be something they could share with their friends and be proud of. It wouldn't be, hey, here's some old guy who I know is really kind of staid and kind of quiet, but well, I don't know what staid is. He's kind of square, but listen to what he has to say. It'd be something they could share and be proud of, because it kicks ass.
As my good friend Stevie Wonder says, I think that it is important that what we do be fun. And too often, the word fun has gone by the wayside in our movement, for sure, because everything we do is so serious all the time, and it should be serious. I mean, it's serious business. The country's serious business. The Constitution is serious business. But when you're 17, nothing is serious business.
That's right.
And when you're 21, nothing is serious business. And now that you're on your parents' insurance until you're 39 years old, nothing is serious business until basically you die. So you might as well, start marketing in terms of things that are fun, which is why, sorry, Bill, but I think that Klavan's videos are in some ways, in this particular sense, all of our videos do different things. Bill's videos are they reach out to people, and they smack people in a way that nobody else's do, and they mobilize the base like nobody else's do. And Drew's videos are specifically designed to reach out to people who have not really thought about politics. That's why he uses the politics of the absurd. I mean, all of Drew's videos are based on the idea that the left is just absurd, and anybody can recognize absurdism. You don't actually have to have moral value to recognize that something is just ridiculous. And so Drew's videos are aimed toward that audience. My videos are typically very statistically heavy because they're aimed more toward, you've got an annoying leftist friend and they keep telling you that that radical Muslims are a tiny minority of the population, and so we go through all the polls to show that that's not the case. So all of these things achieve kind of different things, and it's the diversity of message. But with the overall goal, I think what separates Truth Revolt as an organization is not just the fact that we want to fight. It's also the fact that we want to fight with a smile. Because if you're not having fun while you're doing it wrong, and no one's going to want to join you.
And it's also that you guys, we know who to fight. I mean, Ben took down Lena Dunham, who maybe some of you guys have never seen. But Lena Dunham was a huge, powerful voice on the cultural left. I mean, it was a great story. Somebody put on Twitter, a leftist put on Twitter, congratulations, Ben Shapiro, you broke Lena Dunham. And it's actually true.
And for those who don't know the Lena Dunham story, this is just kind of a fun story, and this is what we do in our spare time when we're not making videos. And that is, Lena Dunham, how many of you have ever heard of HBO's Girls? Okay, so a fair number, about half of you know what HBO's Girls is. Now, I didn't ask how many of you have seen it, because no one has ever seen the show. Like, really, no one has ever seen this show. It has no ratings whatsoever. It's just that the media loves it because it's a fat chick getting naked. And so that's really the entire premise of the show, is a fat chick getting naked. And this is why it's special, because everybody is sort of puzzled by this, because if it were an attractive chick getting naked, everybody like, oh, okay, that's TV, right? I mean, like, we all get that. But she gets naked, and everyone's like, well, what's going on? There's this element of, it's an element of surprise. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. And so she has become, through this, the media has decided that she is out for empowering women because she's a fat chick who gets naked. And so in her role of empowering women, all she does all day long is talk about abortion. That's her only thing. She just talks about how abortion is it's not just a decent thing to do, it is a moral thing to do. You actually get extra moral points for participating in that.
She's the national spokeswoman for Planned Parenthood.
Right, she is the national spokeswoman for Planned Parenthood. So anyway, Kevin Williamson wrote a phenomenal review, a national review, terrific writer. He wrote a long review of Lena Dunham's book. And Lena Dunham's book, which no one has ever read, except for the reviewers at the New York Times, they didn't bother to point out one slightly relevant section that Williamson points out in about paragraph 19 of his review. And that is that in her book, Lena Dunham says openly two things. One, she says that when she was 7 and her sister was 1, she looked inside her sister's vagina for pebbles. and that her mother basically decided this was a perfectly normal thing to do, no problem, it's all fine. And it's this really perverse little story told for cutesy effect. And then the other thing is she says that when she was 17 and her younger sister was 12, she was pleasuring herself in bed with her sister awake next to her on her. Right? She says all this in her book. This is an icon for the left. So this is buried in paragraph 19. We take that out, and I tell one of our writers, okay, skip the rest of the story. We're going to go right to that. Right? The other 25 paragraphs of the story are irrelevant. This is the part that matters. So we write up a story, and the headline on it is Lena Dunham sexually molested her sister. And Lena Dunham goes insane. Right? She goes on Twitter, she starts tweeting at us and telling us what terrible people we are. And then the media starts to catch on to the fact that this material is actually in her book. And then she sends us a cease and desist letter threatening to sue us for putting up the story. Which was the greatest thing that ever happened. And so I wrote a piece for Truth Revolt, basically saying, "Come and get us. You know, enjoy yourself. You know, I'm very interested in deposing you about your sexual history. You know, under oath about your sexual history with your sister. I can't wait for this deposition. It's going to be a blast. I'm a lawyer. I mean, this will be fun." And she ended up suspending her YouTube her Twitter account, which had 4 million followers. She ended up canceling the rest of her European book tour. Now she's going to move away from New York to escape the scrutiny. She's now moving out of New York, and she's basically been made defunct as a spokesperson for the left on these sorts of issues. You know, these are the sorts of things you can do, and this is stuff that none of us would ever think of doing because this is a space we don't even pay attention to. Right? The reason she's a spokesperson for the left is because she's fun, right? I mean, she gets naked. And for us, we would never even touch this space because we're so focused on President Obama's violations of Article 2 of the Constitution that we forget that nobody cares about Obama's violations of Article 2 of the Constitution. They care about this fat naked chick.
That's right. And they vote for Obama not because they've never seen an Obama speech, they've never seen State of the Union.
Right.
You ask young people what Barack Obama's policies are, they couldn't tell you. They vote for Barack Obama because Lena Dunham votes for Barack Obama, and Lena Dunham does commercials for Barack Obama. If it's going to be your first time, why don't you make it with Barack? And she brought a significant portion of the youth vote. That youth vote was his margin of victory in 2 elections. So Ben's exactly right. You go to the messenger of the you go to where the action is, and you blow up the bridge. If you've got one bridge over a river and then 700 railroads on the other side, you can try and blow up all the individual railroads, or you could just take out the bridge. And the same event is the same event. That's it. It's a choke point. It's a cultural choke point. And I just want to close by saying the story is so remarkable only because it goes to show you how much effect we can have if we just decide to get in the fight. It's just that simple. If we just decide to fight back. Alec Baldwin was another casualty of this. He's an awful man, but he's just given free rein. And one little tiny little voice, it's not the New York Times up here, I mean, one little tiny little voice with your support is able to just take Pierce Morgan, Lena Dunham, Alec Baldwin. I mean, this is what a junior varsity team can do with lemonade stand money, and it just goes to show you how vulnerable these people are, because they're awful, evil people.
And by the
they're
way,
just bad people.
Also shifting national messages, because I can tell you that there was there were people on the right who were running away from the Ferguson story, running headlong away from the Ferguson story because they were scared to death that we were going to be labeled as racist if we stood up for Officer Darren Wilson. And I promise you that the video that Bill cut and the video that I cut, and Drew, you cut a video on Ferguson as well. Those videos were, I would certainly say this, they were the most highly watched thing on the right about Ferguson, aside from Fox News, which was really late to the game because they really waited a long time to get in on that frenzy. And without those videos actually spilling out the facts, people would have just let it go. They would have acted like it. They would have let the lynch mob have what the lynch mob wanted.
I think if you watch what's happening in Congress now, one of the things that motivates GOP politicians more than anything else is fear of what the media will say about them, because they own the media, they monopolize the media. And what is so delightful about the 4 people sitting in front of you is we don't care. And I think that gives us absolute freedom to tell the truth. We do not care. And I think when you see what Congress does and the way they back down repeatedly, what's Obama's strength? He doesn't have the Senate. He doesn't have the House. What has he got? He's got the media. Why could Hillary Clinton just ignore the scandal that's coming out? She's got the media. They're not going to cover it. But we're going to cover it. And because they're so vulnerable, as Bill says, just one little voice telling the truth has enormous impact.
And we bring these sort of insurgent new media techniques to other parts of the center as well. I'm sure a lot of you have followed, maybe if you haven't, David's new campaign called Jew Hatred on Campus Awareness Week. And it's sort of inspired in part by a speech that Ben gave at UCLA a year ago in opposition to the divestment vote that was happening at that time on campus. Ben was laying in bed and got a text message that the student government at UCLA was going to vote on divestment. He loaded up in the car, got out of bed, loaded up the car, drove down there, gave a 2-minute speech which went viral on YouTube, in which he labeled the BDS movement Jew hatred. Not anti-Semitism, not inappropriate, not misguided.
That's it.
Jew hatred. And they won the day. They carried the day. Israel carried the pro-Israel community on campus carried the day by one vote. That the person who changed their vote and voted in favor or voted in opposition to the BDS initiative said openly that it was Ben's speech that changed. Now, Ben didn't provide him any new information on the topic. Ben shamed him the way that the left was shaming him into voting against Israel because you're a racist, xenophobic, warmongering Islamophobe if you vote with Israel. Ben applied that same technique to make him feel like he was a racist, warmongering Jew hater if he voted against Israel. By the way, there's a huge problem called the entire Jewish campus movement basically then opposed Ben and didn't let him come to campus the next time that they voted on BDS, and BDS won. Now UCLA student government has voted to divest from the state of Israel. That goes to a deeper problem in our movement, the fact that we have a death wish and we're part of like the world's greatest suicide pact for some reason on the national right. But David obviously never wanted to shy away from a fight. Wanted to take this buzzword, Jew hatred, or this phrase, Jew hatred, and turn it into a major part of the national conversation about Israel on campus. And he asked, the Truth Revolt team what we could do in support of his initiative. And we reached out to 2 friends of ours who are actually here today. I actually don't know if I'm allowed to say their names or anything, but they are in the room. I won't point to them, but they're here. And we said, hey, what if we did a street art campaign? Not a flyer, not a track, not a speech on campus. What if we just put up posters of Palestinians committing atrocities and called that Justice in Palestine, linked it to the name of the biggest pro-Palestinian group on campus, Students for Justice in Palestine, and then put the hashtag Jew hatred on the bottom? Like, what if instead of trying to teach anybody anything, we just pissed them off real good? And our allies who are here in the room, who are well known for their insurgent street art campaigns, put together 5 different posters, and with the help of our grassroots coordinator, Elisha Krause, and some great student activists across the country whom we won't name to protect their identities for their own safety, we were able to hit almost 60 campuses with these posters in one night. People just woke up on Monday morning, and on almost 60 campuses were these Jew hatred posters, and the world went insane. The whole planet apparently melted down like it hadn't since Lena Dunham of people. And part of it was they didn't know who had done it, right? Because at first you wake up at UCLA and you think, oh, some Islamophobe, some lone crazy Islamophobe thinks that maybe Israel is better than Hamas, based on some crazy notion. But then as the day unfolds and this starts happening on campus after campus after campus after campus, SJP panicked. The entire internet basically blows up. There's actually videos now on YouTube of people teaching other students how to take our posters down when they appear on campus.
Can we see the video?
You can. The video's on YouTube, and in fact, we'll post it on Truth Revolt for whomever asks.
Well, the best part of that story is what happened with David afterward.
Oh my gosh! So
spectacular.
A day later, David claims credit for the episode, and he was contacted by the state police, and they said, Mr. Horowitz, listen, I hate to do this, I hate to bring this up, but you've taken credit for this hate speech on campus, and I'm investigating that. And David said, oh, you're investigating the posters? Well, I thought maybe you were investigating the terrorist-supporting student group, hate group, Students for Justice in Palestine. See, the state police didn't know they were talking to a Reformed 60s radical, right? And he says, well, Mr. Horowitz, now I'm not trying to get into the politics of it. I'm not trying to start a fight here. I just want to let you know that it was vandalism, sir, and we're not going to press charges, but we need $500 from the center to pay for the cleanup fees on campus, and we're going to need the names of the students who helped you do this. And David said, well, I'm not giving you shit and I'm not telling you shit.
You can sum up the problem we're in with the country right now in this very simple statement, and you heard this all the time during the Romney campaign. Well, we should attack Barack Obama personally. Well, we can't attack him personally because he's very popular. He's very popular because he's never been attacked personally. Once you realize that this is the entire game, everything gets very clear and very simple after all of this. We're told that if we attack these people, if we call them what they are, then people aren't going to like us, that we'll somehow be vilified. Well, we're vilified anyway. Mitt Romney was turned into a... Now, whatever you think of him as a candidate, he had the finest moral character since George Washington. He was utterly vilified. We've been talking about story. Jeremy does this really remarkable analysis of the power of the villain, and I was about to do it because I can do it better than him, but I'll let him do it anyway because it's his story. But seriously, this idea that we cannot attack personally means that in the last election, you had a guy in the person of Mitt Romney who won on every single exit poll, on every single thing that mattered, but he's the bad guy, versus Barack Obama, who nobody particularly thought was going to do a good job, but who's the good guy. And you can't undemonize yourself. Romney couldn't undemonize himself, but if Romney had demonized Obama the way that Obama had demonized Romney, and there's a lot more to demonize there, frankly, just off the top of my head, ask Barack Obama's brother who's living in poverty of $20 a year in Africa about moral character and personhood. And then what you've got, folks, is now you've got two demons. Now you've got two villains. Whose policy do you like better out of these two villains?
Yeah.
See, and then the election would have been over with a 60% win for Mitt Romney. Wouldn't be having to watch the destruction of everything we love in front of our very eyes.
Yeah, Ben and I were talking about this morning. It's actually remarkable if you watch the DNC, the Democrat National Convention last year, and the RNC, the keynote speeches were exactly the same. Bill Clinton came out at the Democrat convention and said, now, Barack Obama, a lot of you think Barack Obama hasn't done a very good job these last 4 years, and I think if he was out here right now, he would tell you the exact same thing. He knows he's made some mistakes, but he has a vision for this country and a heart for this country, and he cares about the people of this country, and he's going to make a real difference for America. And then our convention comes along, and Mitt Romney comes out, and he says almost the exact same lines. He says, Barack Obama loves his kids. Barack Obama is a good man. Barack Obama has a heart for this country, and he loves this country. But he has not done a very good job of running the country the last 4 years. And what we posit on this stage is that if our message about Barack Obama is exactly the same as Barack Obama's message about Barack Obama, we're not going to win.
What Jeremy talked about when he was talking about villains, he talked about the example of Star Wars. And look, basically in the first Star Wars movie, just so you understand the power of story, what do you have? You have this tiny little ship that's running away, and it's being pursued by this wedge, and as this wedge goes over, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The Empire is extremely powerful. The Rebel Alliance is a tiny little, itty-bitty little force. And you go inside the Rebel Alliance ship, and you see actual people with real faces, and they're scared because they're diplomats, they're not warriors, and they take their positions. And down at the end of the hall, there's this explosion, and there's red light and smoke. It's the portal to hell. And out come these white skeletons, these white stormtroopers with skull masks. It's living dead. They're not even people. It's skeletons. It's the undead have come to kill us all. And the good people go down, and one by one, the actual faces of the actual people go down, and then through the portal steps a 7-foot-tall giant with a black cloak and a skull for a face and a Nazi helmet. And I'm watching this at a drive-in on top of a station wagon, and I whisper to the person next to me, I think that's the bad guy. But the reason Luke Skywalker is ready to give his life is because Darth Vader is pure evil, and that kind of evil is worth dying to fight. And one of the things that I think Jeremy said was, just imagine if Obi-Wan Kenobi was talking to Luke Skywalker about this empire, and he'd said, well, Luke, Darth Vader's not a bad man. He's really quite a good fellow. We just don't like the way he's administering the empire. We think his tax rates are a little higher than they should. No, Darth Vader's not a bad man. He's just, we disagree with his policies.
If the movie went that way, then you would say that the Jedi Knights were Tea Party radical extremists.
Right.
Not in step with the mainstream of the Rebel Alliance.
But the bigger issue is, are you then going to get into a beat-up, obsolete fighter airplane, go through wave after wave of Imperial starfighters, roll into that Death Star trench, dodge the incoming laser blast, watch your wingmans get vaporized, pickle 2 photon bombs into the thing the size of a pie chart, get the hell out of there? Are you going to risk your life because, well, we disagree about the way that he's administering the empire? No, Jeremy's point was, People will not vote for the villain. They will not do something that they perceive to be evil, even if their head is telling them, this guy's better on everything, but he's the bad guy. I can't be a bad guy. I can't vote for the bad guy. I got to vote for the good guy even though I don't agree with him. This is why we lose elections. This is what David's entire point has been for the entire Freedom Center is you've got to understand that the left is outnumbered. Their philosophy